First question, always to break the ice. What's your favorite drink right now?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm interning this summer because I'm heading into my last year of law school. So, really, it's really bad caffeine. So, I'm going to have to go with Starbucks coffee, either Starbucks or Dunkin', anything,
What's the,
anything. And I always get a shot of espresso now. That's been of late to give me a little extra boost for the long days that I usually have ahead of me. So definitely anything from Starbucks. I try to keep up with all the fun drinks that people come out with and try to recommend on social media. And usually they're pretty good. So if you have any recommendations for Starbucks or Dunkin' drinks, let me know because that's my favorite right now. But
so
usually I do
you're
anything.
you're like the special edition girl. Then something new comes out, you have to try it immediately, right?
Right, especially in the fall when school's starting back up and they come out with all the cute little fall drinks and fall flavors that you can try. So that's been my thing, my favorite drinks thus far.
Yeah, I feel like the fall gets all the love with peppermint and pumpkin spice and all of these other things between the fall and early winter. It's funny, you mentioned caffeine. I just started drinking coffee like 2 years ago. I'm 47.
Really?
I hated it my entire life, but like now it's like just the appetite suppressant is worth the price of admission. You know what I mean?
I get that.
uh,
I get
uh, so again, thank you so much for your time today. I know how busy you are. Like you said, last year of your doctorate right now, which is holy crap, man! You got to be excited to get that over with.
I am very excited to get it over with. It's a crazy journey and experience. So I'm really excited for schools to start back up in just a couple of weeks. But at the same time, I know what's ahead,
Mm-hmm.
especially already having 2 years under my belt. So I'm like, ooh, but it just makes it's going to make the journey even more sweeter at the end when I'm finally completely done. And that's going to be the best day ever.
All right, so let's start from the beginning, I guess. First of all, tell us where you grew up, and then kind of tell us how your story began with what you ended up doing as an adult.
Sure. So my hometown where I grew up, a little small town called Helena, Alabama, about 30 minutes south of Birmingham. And this has truly been my home. I'm here right now. This is where I come to. This is my safe place. And I love always coming back because we've evolved so much. I feel like any small town nowadays has evolved. I'm super excited. We have a Chick-fil-A now. So I love going to the
Oh,
Chick-fil-A and the Dunkins and some other things that they're starting to build up in this area. And it's just beautiful. I went here from pre-K all the way up, graduating in high school, and I just had the best memories here, especially when I got into pageantry. And that was a big part of my teenage life going into my early 20s. So all of this started really with my whole family, really starting with my mom, who competed in the Miss Alabama organization back in the 80s. And when she competed her first year out, she ended up being in the top five. There were 60 girls that year at the Miss Alabama
wow.
competition. And she was the first African American to make it into the top five at that time. So I knew I had really big shoes to fill if I
Yeah.
ever wanted to compete in the Miss Alabama and Miss America organization. My mother never ended up actually winning Miss Alabama, but she always kept the love and gave that love to me about the program and the different scholarship opportunities. So just from her not even winning the title of Miss Alabama, she was able to graduate from the University of North Alabama completely debt free. And
Mm-hmm.
she never won Miss Alabama, never went to Miss America, and my mom is a performer, just like I'm a performer. So she won lots of talent competitions. She loved performing at Miss Alabama. So I knew that if I ever wanted to do this, like I mentioned before, it would be really big shoes to fill. And I was really nervous. And I thought, wow, just looking at my mom and her journey and how I just looked up to her, and she's still the biggest role model and influence in my life, to thinking if she'd never won, I just never have a chance.
Right,
And
right.
then growing up and going to the Miss Alabama competition every single year, really from the time that I can remember as a young girl, all the women were just so eloquent, so beautiful. But then when you got to spend time with them behind stage, I ended up in the Rising Star program, which is a mentoring program in the organization. And they were just so down to earth. And I thought, wow, they're my best friends and they're still able to be so cool and have this cool talent. And I said, you know what? I want to do this one day. And so my first step to doing that, of course, I had the wonderful opportunity of having my mother to help me with all her years of experience being in the organization and ending up being a director herself of her own local pageant. I decided, like I mentioned, I was in Rising Stars, which gave me a little peek at what was to come. And then eventually they had the teen competition for young teenagers. So I started in that. I competed in the teen program for 3 years.
Wow.
And on my third try, I was able to win. I won as Miss Metropolitan's Outstanding Teen, and I won at 16 years old, going on 17 when I gave up the title. So just being so young, I thought, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this at this young age. I mean, I'm still having to go back to high school for my
Mm-hmm.
senior year. So that was a really cool experience and getting to go to Miss America's Outstanding Teen, where I ended up being able to get into the top 8 there at that national competition. And I'm an opera singer, so getting to perform was also a wonderful memory, and getting to see and hang out with so many other young teenagers, because for so long I felt like an outsider in school because I just felt so different. I didn't always want to do what everyone else wanted to do. So it was really cool to find a group of young women who were teenagers who I could always keep this connection with. And it was really cool to say that I had friends in all these different states too when I got back to my last year of high school. So after I came back from Miss America's Outstanding Teen, I finished out my senior year of high school at Helena High School. And I thought, you know what? That gave me the boost that I needed to really know that I can do this. And once I got all of my scholarship money, I'm sorry, my puppy's in
No,
the
you're
background.
good. You're good.
My
That's
puppy's in the background. I don't want him to disturb us.
no, no, no. I do another show, another podcast, and she's got like a 170 pound Great Dane that's like the mascot of the show. He always makes an appearance, so it's all good. Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, so if you hear anything, that's my little Yorkie having a little shout out here on the podcast. But I gained a lot of scholarship money, a full ride after winning Miss Alabama's Outstanding Teen to any university and any college here in the
Wow.
state of Alabama. And then going to Miss America's Outstanding Teen, I gained more scholarship money that I could use when I was deciding on where I wanted to go for college and to go into higher education. So came back, I thought, now that I don't have to worry about paying for school, I'm just going to do this for fun now. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I did. I literally, after that experience of competing on a national stage, I was ready for Miss Alabama. I was ready and I was excited to be back home, but a little bit nervous because I thought, I don't know how I will do in what I like to call the big girl pageants
Mm-hmm.
because I was so used to competing with teenagers. And so, anyway, I went in my first year at Miss Alabama, ended up being first runner up
Wow.
that year, and was scared to death as I stood up there with Miss Alabama at that time, Callie Walker, when she won, because I thought, I am not ready for this. I was
Mm-hmm.
only 19 years old at the time, and I thought, I just really wanted to try this out and just see how well I would do. I didn't think I was going to do this well at all, but ended up being first runner up. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to definitely go back next year. I did. And that's when you met me, though, right before I went to Miss Alabama as Miss Tennessee Valley.
Right, right. And I
So my
remember us
first
talking
year.
about that when you were telling us that you were going to Miss Alabama the next year.
Yes.
So this is a second generation passion for you, first of all, and I want to talk about that with your mom here in a minute,
Yeah.
because that like you said, big shoes to fill. But I want to ask you a question about that. But before we get to that one, I want to know again, like the pageant world, you start so young. It's like gymnastics for young girls.
Right.
Like the earlier you get into it, the more you're acclimated to the world, and the more adjusted you will be when it's time to place and even win. My question for you is, did that replace a big chunk of what you could have had a childhood, or like do you have any regrets? I guess is the question. Looking back at it,
Absolutely not. I really feel like it gave me the childhood that I was seeking. I mean, I have wonderful parents. I grew up in a wonderful household where they never pressured me to compete in pageants. And I know a lot of people have, unfortunately, negative experiences with competing in
right?
pageants. Especially if you're looking at role models and examples of toddlers and tiaras. My experience was nothing like that. When I first started in the teen program, I was a teenager. I was around 14, getting ready to be 15 years old. So I was old enough to definitely make my own decisions at that
Right.
time because I was
Right.
doing something positive. And my parents definitely encouraged me to do something positive with my life and to get into an organization where I could connect with other young girls who were trying to go down the same path that I was trying to go down, where I knew that I would love to do this with pageants and to compete and to get to wear beautiful dresses. But I also had the opportunity to create my own community service initiative where I was helping others who had psoriatic disease, like my
Mm.
mother, which is
Yep.
something that a lot of teenagers couldn't really maybe say at that young age. So I definitely have no regrets because I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have been able to be Miss Alabama. I tell people all the time, had I not had that experience as a teenager, and I wouldn't be getting ready to graduate from law school had I not had all the scholarship opportunities and just the
Right.
confidence to continue on.
I love it. It's such a cool story. But I mean, starting at 14, some would say that's starting late in that world. You know what I'm saying? Like you mentioned toddlers and tiaras. Like that's the typical journey in pageantry. I feel is like they start so small. I also imagine in the industry that you have to lose a lot before you ever even come close to winning. So I guess the question here is, what did the losing teach you? Not just as a young lady, but as a competitor. And ultimately, what did the winning teach you as well?
I was very fortunate where I had a journey through pageants where I really loved it so much. And really, I tell everyone that there's so many amazing young women that come through this organization that never win. And they do lose a lot. And you can see, oh, wow, they would be a wonderful representative because it's all about community service, giving back, and having someone that's really relatable and they never win. But I had those moments where even though I did pretty well in the state competitions, I wouldn't win, Miss Alabama or Miss Alabama's Outstanding Teen. I would have to go back and start all over
Right.
again. And when
Yep.
I had to start that journey at the local, there would be times where first year teen, when I competed at Miss Alabama's Outstanding Teen, I ended up being second runner up. And then I went back, of course, to start this journey all over again. And I did not win at all. I didn't get a thing. I didn't even place or get a runner up position
Mm-hmm.
at the local. And it took me a couple of tries before I got back there. So, what I learned from that experience is that you really have to believe in yourself. And it's already hard enough because everyone's going to have their own opinions of maybe what you should do, what you should look like, what your talent should be.
Yep.
Maybe they have different criticisms about you. And that's really hard to hear or maybe hear from others, even if they don't say it to you directly at a young age. And and thankfully, like I've mentioned, I've had a wonderful support system and still do in my family that always told me, you believe in yourself, you can do this. And regardless of what the judges may feel or think about you, you are still Tiara at the end of the day, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
whether you walk away from winning. So that's what I gained a lot of confidence to know that a lot of times before you become successful in whatever you're trying to conquer, you're going to fail sometimes in your
Mm.
mind. You're going to lose, but you gain
Absolutely.
so much.
And you have your mom there as well as an ambassador and an asset to you in knowing of what she went through. She can tell you her experiences. You can trust her because she's your mom. You know she's going to give it to you straight. So you had that asset. That's a huge thing to have, I feel, when you're under a microscope all the time. Like at least you can commiserate with somebody and get advice from somebody who's been under that microscope as well. You know?
Absolutely.